I will try to discuss the possibility of interplay between different type of orderings. We know that it's very exciting thing to have in one sample, for instance, magnetism and superconductivity, or magnetism and ferroelectricity, or in this case, ferroelectricity and superconductivity. One thing, it's a lecture, but if you will have questions during the lecture, please ask them. I will be happy to discuss it during my talk. Yeah, no problem. Yeah. Okay, so some original part of this work, which I will discuss, has been done together with Sasha Kopasov, who is here, yeah, and Tima Annenkov, it's his student of MIPT, yeah, and Landau Institute for Theoretical Physics also. Okay, so this is a sort of outline of my talk. Let me spend a few minutes just give you some impression of what we are going to discuss, what we are going to talk about, yeah? And I will start from a brief reminder about electric field effect in superconductors. Basically, it means that everybody wants to control transport current, superconducting transport current, yeah? And we all know that obvious way to control it is to apply magnetic field, but experimentalists and engineers do not like that. This is bad for a number of reasons. And what would be much better is to create, so to say, superconducting field effect transistor. So to control superconductivity applying electric field, it's faster, it's just better. And we know that standard field effect transistors, they work, and it would be very nice to make them superconducting. Okay, so from this brief reminder, I will continue with some discussion of the particular example of interplay between ferroelectricity and superconductivity in van der Waals structures, yeah? And discuss the experiments on the giant electric field effect in these systems. And after that, I will suggest some sort of original explanation of this interplay and discuss the domain wall superconductivity, meaning that we are speaking about ferroelectric domain walls, not magnetic, ferroelectric, yeah? And then I will discuss critical magnetic fields in these systems and some other properties of this specific sort of, so to say, interlaced superconductivity, which we suggest as an explanation for the interaction between ferroelectric and superconducting orderings. Yeah? Okay, so this is the plan. And now electric field effect in superconductor. What should we do? We need just take, for instance, this blue superconductor. Yeah, right? Blue. Film, superconducting film. Then put a sort of isolating barrier and the gate. Then we want to apply the gate voltage, and we want to control, for instance, critical temperature. This is a very bad idea. Why? Because, of course, this blue guy, it's superconductor, but it's a metal. And this is why the electric field, static electric field, it's screened in a metal at a very short length, which is basically Thomas Therme screening length, a few angstroms, yeah? And it means that this length scale is well below the size of the Cooper pair, which is basically the coherence length, it can be like 1,000 or even larger angstroms. Yeah. Because of that, one can expect that if we start, if we adopt standard PCS theory, and well, this famous expression for critical temperature is given on the right hand. Yeah. Of course, we could, in principle, tune the density of states at the Fermi level, applying the electric field, but we can do that only in a very narrow layer near the surface. This means that we cannot change critical temperature. It's just, well, it should be very weak effect. Some characteristic parameter which should determine this possibility should be like a ratio of Tc, critical temperature of superconducting transition, to the Fermi energy. That's very small ratio. And so it looks like it's impossible. Okay, but people tried to suggest various way to overcome this difficulty, still to organize somewhat interplay with some effect of the electric field on superconductivity. And a number of such suggestions have been published, say, in 80s, yeah, in 90s, well, and even now, yeah, and basically one of the ideas is illustrated in this slide. And look, what we can do, we can take two-layer system consisting of superconducting film and semiconductor. What does it mean? Then we can apply the gate voltage from the right, yeah, and control the potential, the band edge, position of the band edge in semiconductor. And this means that we can arrange some influence of the electric field on the boundary condition at the interface between superconductor and semiconductor. So we just use a sort of agent, semiconductor as an agent, which helps us to affect superconductivity. Okay, so is it possible? Yeah, it's better. It's much better than the previous slide, yeah? But nevertheless, it's not so good as it should be, yeah? Okay, so still this game continues, and even recently we can find a lot of experimental papers devoted to the effect of electric field. In particular, in this slide, I just cite some works of the group by Gerasotta, yeah, who tried to observe experimentally the influence of electric field on not only on critical temperature but also on critical current, superconducting critical current. Still must say that there are some debates in community concerning the correctness of these experiments, concerning possible explanations. And well, let me not go into the details of this particular story. And instead of that, I will focus on another experimental example of the effect of electric field on superconductivity, which for me personally looks much more convincing and interesting. And this is a sort of recent, well, like a little bit more than 3 years experiment in so-called van der Waals systems, B-layers. Yeah, it's molybdenum telluride B-layers, and the picture you can see it here in the center. And experimentalists are very smart, so they can arrange the application of voltages, of potentials to the structure in such a way that, look, they can use one of the electrodes which is in the center of the structure, just between the layers, yeah, and other two up and down. And applying different voltages, they can control the ferroelectric states of these delays. And the ferroelectric ordering in such systems has some important peculiarities, which I will try to explain you in a minute. Yeah, next slide. But let me just note the key point of this study. Look, in this system, they see the superconducting resistive transition. It's its resistance as a function of temperature. And you have this resistive transition to superconducting state. What is much more important, look to the right, this bottom picture, you can see that controlling this D large, which is basically some difference between the gate potentials, you can change first the dipole moment, and simultaneously you can control the resistance. And you see that changing this applied potential to the structure, electric potential, you just have these drops of resistance, switching of resistance from zero to non-zero. Yeah, look, and it's a sort of hysteretic behavior. I will discuss it more. It's just for a start, for beginning. So let me just continue. It's in this slide. I will try to illustrate you a sort of basic idea of very unusual ferroelectric ordering in these structures. It's called sliding ferroelectricity. And the idea looks like follows. You want to arrange the shift of the atomic structure in the plane of the layers so that to get the dipole moment perpendicular to the layers. Why? Why does it happen? Look, say we have these two layers consisting of red and blue atoms, yeah? And then we start to shift the positions of these lattices in different layers. It's sort of an indication that you have some breakdown of symmetry, and you can have this dipole moment. Then you should calculate some distribution of electronic density and get it, yeah? And of course, I will not go into details of these complicated calculations, but believe me that people did it, and they illustrate possibility to realize this sliding ferroelectric behavior. Experimentally, this kind of unusual ferroelectric ordering can be measured, for instance, using some probe techniques like it is shown here for vanadium telluride. Yeah, a sort of piezo response they measured and observed ferroelectric domains. Yeah, and so it looks like this kind of phenomenon does really exist. Yeah, and let's see now what happens with superconductivity. It's again the same picture, but let me just discuss it a little bit more, maybe just repeat somewhat. Well, look, again, this plot, resistance as a function of this T. You may think that this T is a sort of parameter which governs the electric moment. Yeah, so it changes polarization. It's like in magnets. You apply a certain external magnetic field and you start to switch magnetic moment. In this case, you are switching electric moment. And important point is that speaking of the magnets, we know that to change the direction of the magnetic moment from up to down, we should go through some domain states. Yeah, we have a lot of domain walls. The domains with wrong orientation of magnetic moment disappear as we increase magnetic field. With proper orientation, they increase. Yeah, and so you just get change of magnetization. The same happens here. The difference is that due to this unusual mechanism of ferroelectric ordering, in fact, this change of orientation of dipole moment is in fact associated with some change of the structure, yeah, in the plane, some shifts, yeah, and this is the thing. But basically, it's very similar, yeah, and we see experimentally, not we, but they see that resistance switched from zero to non-zero. And it looks like, look at this picture, for large dipole moments which point in the same direction, you do not have. You have some finite resistance, yeah? It's resistive state. If you change the orientation of the dipole moment to the left, yeah, you again have some finite resistance, no superconductivity. But in between, when we supposed to have some domain structure of signet ferroelectric domains, yeah? Мне просто хочется сказать сигнет электрических. Okay, so we seem to have zero resistance, yeah? And this is superconductivity in homogeneous state. This is the key point, which I am going to explain, yeah? This is the key point, yeah? Okay, so a little bit, well more pictures from this experimental work. What they did, look to the right. They applied certain pulses of these gate voltages, yeah, and so they switched the states in these hysteretic curves, yeah. So they had this step-like behavior of the resistance. They can make the switch, superconducting electric switch, yeah, but switching by electric field. Okay, we have pulse, resistance goes down to zero, then again next pulse up, then down, and so on. Yeah, look, they got it. Yeah, and okay, so to my mind, it's very interesting and convincing experiment. Yeah, and in this slide, I'm just illustrating my previous words. Yeah, look, it looks like in the upper state when all dipole moments are down, yeah, we have no superconductivity for some reason, yeah. When we I want to say magnetize in opposite direction, but it's not magnetization, it's electrization, yeah. When we make sorry, polarize, yeah, right. And people started, of course, to think, what's the reason for this behavior? And immediately they thought, okay, there should be that these domain walls, they somehow stimulate superconductivity, yeah? And the first idea was written in this paper. And what they say, these authors, yeah? Look, let's take just energy E, which is proportional to electron concentration times this dipole electric moment. Yeah, and if we expand this dipole electric moment in degrees of shifts of atoms, U, it's U, yeah, around some equilibrium position, we get some sort of this expression. What is important is that the derivative of P over U, it's maximum near the domain wall. And using this argument, these authors assume that, well, it may very well happen that with this domain wall, we can associate some additional electron-phonon interaction, which increases in the presence of domain walls, and this is why we get some additional contribution to the attractive potential between electrons. This was their idea, yeah, and but I, I would try to suggest a little bit alternative, yeah, a sort of alternative, yeah. Some alternative explanation, it should be organized like follows. Say we have a Cooper pair, yeah? Say we have a Cooper pair consisting of two electrons, and clearly we could arrange strong effect of dipole moment on this pair if we somehow arrange the potential jump in between these electrons. So it means that we should consider a sort of non-local pairing. For instance, the pairing of electrons positioned not in the same layer, but in different layers. Interlay pairing. And if we introduce this kind of non-local superconducting pairing, we probably can explain the above experiment. Let me show you more pictures. Yeah, the upper left picture is a sort of standard illustration of the proximity effect. Yeah, say we have this P layer with its superconducting film and a certain yellow, it may be normal film, also superconducting, it doesn't matter. Basically, because of the tunneling of electrons, transfer of electrons from red sample to yellow samples, we get some induced superconducting relations in yellow from the red. Yeah, it's standard picture of proximity effect. But let us pose a question: what happens still if we have zero electron transfer between these samples? The electrons cannot tunnel because we have very large potential barrier at the interface or whatever. Yeah, can we still get some sort of induced superconductivity in yellow part of the samples? The obvious answer is no, of course not. But still, look, even if the barrier is not transparent for electrons, it doesn't mean that it's not transparent for phonons. And this is why if we have an electron in the upper layer interacting with a certain phonon, this phonon can go down in the yellow film and arrange the interaction between electrons between the fields, between the systems. And in this case, we get a sort of interlayer pairing. And what is interesting that in this case, this interlayer pairing becomes well, a sort of different from standard Cooper pairs. Look, speaking of standard Cooper pairs, we usually assume that they are singlet. Why? Well, if we have just point attraction. This means that to arrange a triplet pair, we should in some sense have two spins in the same position. And this is bad because of power exclusion principle. This is why, on a qualitative level, why standard Cooper pairs are usually singlet with opposite spins, because it's not forbidden by Pauli principle. This is not the case for this interlay pairing, because look, these two electrons, they are already in different positions, in different fields. And this means that this interlay pairing should be, in some sense, more favorable for triplet pairs. Yeah? And this is one more important difference, which we will try to compare with experimental data. Yeah? Okay, this story is not you. It's not ours, of course. Yeah, it's now starting from 67. Look, Cohen and Douglas. They, as far as I know, they were the first who suggested this kind of interlay pairing to organize superconductivity in P layers. Yeah, and then Yefetov and Larkin, they developed these ideas in the context of some experiments in layered superconductors. And important point was that experimentally, in some layered systems, people observed very high critical magnetic fields. And these critical magnetic fields, they exceeded the so-called paramagnetic limit. Paramagnetic limit, it means that, look, you have, say, it's super bad. You apply magnetic field, which tries to orient this, say, direction. And the critical field, which is responsible for the destruction of the Cooper pairs due to the rotation of spins in the same direction, it's in fact field of paramagnetic limit. And if it will not so much larger, even much, yeah, this is bad because it looks strange if we start from the picture of singlet pairing. But triplet pairing is much better because for this case, we do not have such restriction, yeah, and we can have rather high critical magnetic field. And this was in fact the idea suggested by Yefetov and Larkin. They said, okay, if we have in layered superconductor this interlay pairing, we can have triplet pairs, as I tried to explain you, yeah, and then, okay, we can have very high magnetic fields, critical magnetic fields. Okay, so then this story continued in, well, many works in application to high DC cuprates and so on. Yeah. Let me again not go into all the details. And what I would like to show you is this simple slide. Look, say we have this P-layer structure. Yeah. And let us suppose for a moment that indeed the superconducting pairing is interlayer. We arrange the Cooper pair consisting of electrons. One of them is situated in the upper film and another one in the down film. And let us now shift a little bit the position of energy pairs. Say for some reason we can control the band offsets, yeah, of electrons in these layers. This immediately means that we can control the self-consistent equation. We can control critical temperature, gap, whatever, just shifting the band offsets. It's, in fact, this story is very analogous to the effect of the exchange field, magnetic field, on superconductivity. we do in fact the same. Just when we control the superconductivity by the magnetic field, by the Pauli effect, yeah, what we do the same. We shift the position of the band offsets for different spins. In this case, we want to control this position of offsets due to the ferroelectric moment. Yeah, this is in fact the point. And look, it's a sort of reminder because time is running. I will skip most of it. It's just a reminder how the exchange field in ferromagnets can destroy Cooper pairs. Yeah, this I already have told you. It's a sort of interaction. Look, it's interaction of magnetic field with spin. Yeah, spin variable. But again, in our case, instead of spin variable, we have number of layers. Okay, so this is the phase diagram from textbook for the critical temperature of superconductor as a function of magnetic field. Yeah, and now what will happen in the case of our bilayer? We do not have now this spin splitting due to the exchange field, whatever. Yeah, but we have ferroelectric moment, which we supposed to be responsible for the shift of the band of bands, yeah, of electrons in neighboring layers. And look, Hamiltonian is quite simple. It's kinetic energy, just some tunneling between the films. It's important. It's different from this simple picture which I told you before. Yeah. For the case of analogy with ferromagnet superconductor interaction, it should be a sort of spinometer, this tunneling effect, yeah? And this is interaction for interlayer pairing, and these are phase diagrams. Now, homogeneous phase diagrams, and you see critical temperature as a function of this chi. Chi is the shift of the paths. It's like exchange field, yeah? And you see this red curve, it's in fact very similar to the picture from textbook, which I have shown you before. But when we switch on the tunneling, you can see that the curve changes. It becomes like blue one, yeah? And this this picture is for triplet pairing, yeah? Homogeneous triplet pair. One important interesting thing is that considering triplet pairing, you can observe that increasing the tunneling, you have some suppression of the critical temperature. Why? It's quite clear. Because, look, for triplet pairing, the key point which makes this, which allows these pairs to exist, is that they are separated at different layers. This helps us to avoid the destroying effect of Pauli exclusion principle. When we switch on tunneling, we kill the pairs. This is the point. This is why increasing tunneling, we should suppress this triplet channel. Okay, so, well, maybe we skip this, yeah? So what we did, I have written Garkov equations for this interlay pairing, yeah? And then we derived standard quasi-classical techniques, well, like Ellenberger theory, yeah? And after that, we used all this machinery to analyze first domain wall superconductivity and also influence of in-plane magnetic fields. So, well, sorry, I will skip technical details and try to explain you results. Yeah. Look, this is this Pillay structure, and this is in fact the domain wall. You see, it's there is some boundary along this y direction which separates the domains with different orientation of this dipole moment. And we assume that the change in the dipole moment orientations, it is the cause of the change in the sign of the shift of the bands. Yeah? And it's quite clear that even if superconductivity is forbidden in the domains far from the walls, it can still exist near the domain walls. Just because this band shift change sign, yeah, it's much better for Cooper pairs to be localized near this domain wall. And this is a sort of schematic behavior of the order parameter. It's a sort of exponential behavior, at least close to the critical temperature. Yeah, and the radius of localization should be a sort of coherence line. And we solved some self-consistency equations, which in this case should be integral. Yeah, and these are the plots. Look, these blue curves, for singlet and triplet pairings, they show you the behavior of the critical temperature for this domain wall superconductivity. At this point, I must say that if we turn to the analogy with ferromagnetic domain walls in superconductors, exactly this problem has been solved many years ago by Belaevsky, Pustin, and other authors. Yeah, the difference here is that to model these structures, we included in our consideration the tunneling between the layers, and so it's different in this sense. But of course, the ideology is very close. Yeah. Okay, so here you can clearly see this increase of the critical temperature. Well, maybe we skip these details. Yeah, for okay, so how can you check this? Yeah, how can you check if it is true or not? Yeah, in principle, it would be nice to control experimentally the tunneling, yeah, the tunneling amplitude, the transfer of the electrons between the layers. This can be done, for instance, applying some pressure, but at the moment I do not know about such kind of experiments. Another way is to apply parallel magnetic field to our structure, so to change the transfer of electrons due to the vector potential, for instance. Yeah, and these kind of experiments has been done by the same authors, yeah, by the same group. And what they observed two interesting, important things. Yeah, first, they observed that the critical field, critical magnetic field applied parallel to the structure, they exceed paramagnetic limit. They exceed Pauli limit. You see, 600%. Yeah, quite large. Yeah. And this is a sort of indication that probably we should have here some sort of triplet pairs. And in the same sense, it's a sort of argument in favor of explanation, which I have discussed. Yeah. Another interesting experimental thing is that they observed twofold anisotropy in the plane of the layers of critical field. Yeah. And I have some picture, you can see here, and look at these figures. It's up a critical field as a function of temperature. And if we apply, say these are layers, we apply it in this direction or perpendicular direction, they are different. Yeah, it's twofold anisotropy. And this also requires some sort of explanation if we want to consider this interlayer superconductivity scenario. Okay? Look, if we start from our model, what should be the key mechanisms which control this influence of magnetic field? First, orbital effect. Look here. You have these two yellow layers. You apply magnetic field parallel to the layers, and you can choose vector potential in perpendicular direction, again parallel to the layers, and it changes in the direction. It depends on z. Yeah, on z, in the direction perpendicular to the layers. And this means that inside these layers, the spectrum should shift as it is shown in this figure to the right. Yeah, just because of vector potential, you have this splitting of spectrum, and this means that if you consider the tunneling conserving the quasi-particle momentum, then increasing magnetic field should suppress tunneling. Yeah, and this should be important if we consider orbital effect of the magnetic field on superconductivity. And this is indeed the case, and we can again do these calculations both for singlet and triplet pairs, yeah? And we observed that in fact this mechanism results in suppression of tunneling. For instance, for triplet pairs, the critical temperature starts to increase as soon as we increase magnetic field. Yeah, but well, this is not the suppression. This is not the critical magnetic field. This we cannot get a critical magnetic field in such a way. So we need something more beyond the orbital mechanism. Yeah. Okay. So next thing which is important is the following. It's compensation of the energy band shift by ZM field. This story has been first discussed by Pozdin with co-authors 20 years ago. And what is the idea? Look, you have some splitting of the energy bands because of the energy band offset, yeah? If you now split the levels in each film by the interaction by the spin splitting because of the magnetic field, you can have some levels coming closer to each other. It's a sort of compensation of the change in the symmetry of the electronic spectrum. Yeah, and because of that, it is possible to get reentrant superconductivity. And we, of course, obtain this theoretically, but experimentally, this reentrant behavior has been observed, which probably means that the parameters which require this kind of behavior do not correspond to these particular structures. Yeah, and finally, if we include in our consideration the triplet pairing, this interlayer pairing, and also this spin splitting effect of the magnetic field, we can get this two-fold anisotropy as they observe experiment. So this particular fact seems that it can be explained within this picture. Okay, so let me summarize. Okay, we suggest a sort of non-local pairing, interlayer pairing, as possible explanation of the experimentally observed interplay between ferroelectric and superconducting ordinals. What we can explain is that if we have homogeneous dipole moment in our sample, we can have zero superconductivity and all superconducting relations are suppressed. For opposite orientation, again, we do not have superconductivity, but if we have some domain structure, we can have superconducting nuclei localized near the domain walls, and this seems to be sort of correspondence with experiment. And what is another thing which is important is that this kind of superconducting relations, interlayer relations, they can favor triplet Cooper pairing. And this can help us to explain the high field of high critical fields exceeding the paramagnetic limit, and in principle, twofold anisotropy. To be honest, it's not the only way to explain twofold anisotropy, but anyway, this seems to be the case. Okay, so it seems to me that my time is. So let me just skip this part, other stations, yeah, which may be also of interest. I just will tell you, uh, yeah, oh, yeah, well, okay, summary. What we did, um, we suggest some sort of explanations of experiments which I discussed. Next, look, uh, this seems to be the way to get giant electric field effect. And it can be some way to create a superconducting field effect transistor. This is why I think it's interesting. Yeah. I mean, first of all, experimentally. Yeah. And finally, but it's the first thing here, in principle, these interlayer superconducting relations can be used to manipulate the so-called old frequency superconductivity and electromagnetic response, which may be useful in physics of topological qubits, Majorana physics, and so on. But this I have no time to discuss. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I have a question regarding this domain wall superconductivity. So this is in fact a 1D wire. Yeah, I know that for metallic 1D wire there is this conductivity quantum and things like this. So they never are ideal conductors. I just don't know anything about the superconducting 1D system. Is there such a fundamental limit for resistance of this, for conductivity of this system?
This is of course correct. That if we have this long domain wall, we have a sort of one-dimensional wire, superconducting wire along it. Yeah, and if you have very small measuring current, then resistivity is zero. But clearly, because this wire, effective wire, is very thin, the critical current can be small. And because of that, it can get the resistive states for other small transport currents. And this story has been discussed a lot, at, both experimentally and theoretically, in application to ferromagnetic superconductor structures. Yeah. And indeed, there are some restrictions on the behavior of resistivity and so on. But what I must say is that concerning this particular experiment, look, in fact, you do not have isolated domain wall. You have many of them. Yeah. And so these wires, when you do this polarization procedure, these wires, superconducting wires, they overlap. And because of that, it's not strictly one dimensional.
This means that you indeed need badly the information about the domain structure.
Yes.
What's the size of domains? What's their shape?
That's correct. Yeah. Yes, that's correct. To verify this scenario and to compare it with experiment quantitatively, you need information about those. That's correct. Yeah, sure.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry for my Russian. Саш, а вот был несколько лет назад хороший обзор Миши Садовского про монослои, значит, селенида железа на титанате стронция на синетой электрике и гигантском увеличении своей проводимости в них. Это совсем другая история, потому что он там перечислял 5 возможных сценариев, механизмов, в том числе какие-то из них вроде сильно коррелируют с твоими.
Но мне, может быть, надо еще раз посмотреть на этот обзор, да, так сказать, может, я что упустил, но, как бы, так сказать, все-таки вот здесь вот не монослои, а здесь существенно то, что здесь пислои. Да, так сказать, как бы, вот потому что идет игра вот на этом филектре. Я не помню, может быть, я забыл, я не помню, чтобы он обсуждал вот это вот слайдинг ferroelectricity. Извините, если я пропустил, что...
Нет, скользящей симметричества там не было, значит, но вот там и оптические фононы были, и самые границы доменов были, это там было все.
Ну, это, наверное, да, но
Да,
здесь всё-таки вот...
спасибо.
Ну, может быть, мне надо еще раз посмотреть, может, я что пропустил. Не исключено.